So we are gonna cast some raffle tickets today. I snagged these at the SoCal Turners Expo, and we're gonna dunk it in some resin. Okay, so we're gonna just estimate about 2,000 grams. It may not fill this thing or whatever, but it's gonna be pretty close. And then we'll do our tickets, and then we're also gonna mix in some red, white, and blue tinsel glitter. I think they call this something else now. Sprinkle glitter is what this is, but whatever. It's red, white, and blue. All right, so 1,000 grams, part A. I don't know if this, I don't think this bucket's gonna hold 1,000 more grams. So it's going to be really close. Yeah. I think I'm just going to, I should have got a bigger bucket. So I'm going to dump 500 into this other one right now. I'm going to have to mix two things, but that's fine. It'll be a lot easier to mix. Okay, so I'm going to zero this guy out, put 500 of part B in this one. I'm going to put 500 in this one. All right, so let's mix these guys up. We're just gonna like shove these things in there and they're gonna be all funky. What I did was I just basically, on the other side, I just have the worm screw in my Easy Chuck. And so I just drilled a hole in the, found center on the blank, drilled a hole down in there just with a hand drill, and then just kind of, screwed it on. So we got the worm screw. That should work pretty well. I think I'm just going to go with an epoxy finish, and I like this option for a kind of more of a very specific reason. I'm going to go with Amazing Clearcast Plus, and considering this bowl is mostly clear resin, well, it's all clear resin with tickets in it. But it was made with Alumilite Clear Slow, which has no UV inhibitors in it. And so what I want to do is use that Amazing Clearcast, and that's going to put, a layer of protection, because that stuff has really high UV inhibitors in it. I have a gear shift knob in my truck that's been in there for a year. My truck sits out all day long, sunlight blazing in, and that Amazing Clearcast still hasn't yellowed. So, hopefully it'll offer some protection from yellowing from the UV rays on the majority of the bowl. So what I'm going to do is just mix some of that up and just kind of wipe it on. I may get a brush out, just try and, level it out a little bit. But you can just basically apply it with your fingers, kind of rub it in. And you want to have the lathe spinning while it's doing that. It'll help it kind of level out. However, the problem is most people's lathes, and even mine, most lathes don't go down to 10 to 25 RPMs, which is, you really want this thing to be just barely spinning so that it levels out and doesn't let it sag. But if you're going too fast on curved surfaces, it kind of, that resin, that liquid kind of ends up getting pushed downhill. It moves around. So you want to be going really slow. So what I've done is I came up with a pretty nifty trick. This is a rotisserie motor. It's plugged in down here. But I just hooked this rotisserie motor up to my lathe, and I have a video on that shows how I did this. It may not work, my specific setup, how I did this on your lathe, but if you check that video out, it might help out with ideas for your setup on how you can get a slow spinning motor to just kind of keep this thing moving while that resin sets up. It's a really cool thing. If you're going to be putting a lot of these types of epoxy finishes on things, you might want to really look into that slow speed turning. It's not very fun having to, for like an hour or two, kind of like, manually turn this thing. It's good to have it just constantly going slow. So check out that video. It's linked down in the description below, and there's a link on the screen here. So I'm just going to mix up some of that Amazing Clearcast and just kind of wipe it on and then let it set up. So let's get to it. All right, so it's all set up. It's the next day, and man, I mean, it is just flawless. I love this finish. Looks absolutely amazing. What I find with these epoxy finishes is they come out so perfect, just without doing any sanding or messing around, just after it cures up. It's like 99% perfect. There were like 2 tiny little flaws that I found. And frankly, it's just not even worth me sanding or trying to fix them, because I'm probably going to do more damage trying to sand out those 2, little tiny issues than just leave it. So I think that, 99% is good for me. But man, I mean, it looks like I just demolded this thing out of a perfect silicone mold. All right, well, that was a little bit sketchy. I don't think I'd advise using a bit that big. I thought that was the one that I usually use on bowls, but I think I actually use about a 2.5. So next time I'll probably go for something a little smaller, but we made it through without any problems. At this point, I'm gonna use my #1 hollower and clean up the face and then just start hollowing this thing out. I cannot wait to get this thing done and see how this thing turns out. So let's start making some shavings. All right, so I got it all sanded up and it is ready for finish. So I'm gonna apply some more of that epoxy. I'm gonna go mix it up real quick and then pull out the brush and hopefully get it on as smoothly as I did the outside, because the outside is still looking just immaculate. It still looks wet. Even after doing all the turning and everything, it still looks amazing. So keeping my fingers crossed that the inside looks that good. If so, this is gonna be one heck of a project. So let's go get that epoxy ready and apply it.
The next morning.
All right, so everything looks immaculate on this, except at some point the rotisserie motor kind of came disconnected from this and it stopped spinning. And I got drips, sags right here. So there's some little bumpiness on the edge there and just a little bit of a kind of a sag on the rim of the bowl. It's so disappointing, and I'm tempted to just say I don't see it, but it's bad enough that I won't let this just stay there. So what I'm gonna do is just turn off the little bumpiness here and then just work on this little area. Just try and sand that back and then just come back and apply just a very thin coat of epoxy again and hope that I don't get any more runs or sags or anything like that. I think it should be okay, but you know, like I said, I'm just gonna cross my fingers. Hopefully I can just kind of fix this one little spot and it'll just kind of disappear. So I'm going to carefully turn away these drips, hopefully not do more damage than I actually have to, and then hopefully I'll kind of, you know, dodge a bullet on this and we'll get this thing done without any other problems. So let's get to it. All right, guys, it's all cured up after fixing the drips. We have no more drips, no more sags. Everything's looking nice and glossy. I'm digging it. Now, there are a couple little minor areas where you can see where, you know, like the edge of the fixed parts where I applied more finish. And the thing is, you know, I could try and sand that out and then, you know, go up through the polishing steps and buff it and do all that. But realistically, I run the risk of spending all that time and still, you know, having an area where it's just slightly not as glossy as the other parts where it's like, you know, perfect. And I don't think it's worth the time. If I really wanted this to be absolutely perfect, I think I would scuff sand the whole bowl at this point, you know, the edges, what I can reach on the lathe, and then reapply the finish in its entirety, like on the entire bowl. That's the way to get the perfect finish, just as long as the thing keeps spinning, as long as the resin is still, you know, kind of liquid, can move. That was the problem. It would have been absolutely perfect if the motor wouldn't have come off or stopped in the middle. So I'm happy with it. I think it's ready to come off the lathe and get this thing to Kate. All right, guys, we got it all finished up and it is looking fabulous. I'm really happy with how this turned out. The shaping is exactly what I was going for. I wanted kind of thick and chunky so that it would have, you know, depth and kind of have that three-dimensional quality to it so you can really see those tickets. Sometimes when you go too thin on something like this, you know, you get rid of most of the material and it's not as impressive. This is exactly what I was going for. I'm pretty happy with the finish. You know, maybe it could have been a little bit better, but there's still a couple minor flaws, but it's one of those things that you can kind of strive for perfection for hours and hours and hours and still never actually get there. In this case, I'm a little worried that, you know, spending more time trying to sand out and polish and buff and do all that stuff, in the end, it may actually kind of show up even still, even with all the buffing and all that. The rest of this finish is like perfect. You know, there are no flaws, there are no scratches, there's no abrasions. And if I went for like the buffing and all that kind of stuff, you may actually kind of see a difference in the sheen. So I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I'm happy with it. And it, as far as I'm concerned, it looks pretty darn good. So a big thank you to Curtis for supplying the tickets on this bowl and for helping support the SoCal Turners Expo. And a big thank you again to Kate and the Harrow family for setting up that event. Hopefully I'll be getting this sent over to Kate and with those blanks, with the handle blanks. So hopefully she can have a little bit of fun with some ticket blanks as well. So we'll get those in the mail. But again, big thank you for all the hard work that they put in to setting that up. I'm looking forward to the next SoCal Turners Expo. Hopefully it'll be coming soon. So I guess that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this project come together because I know I had a blast making this thing. And I have links to all the products and things that I used that I could think of down in the description below, tools and supplies and all that kind of stuff. If this is your first time on my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on upcoming live streams as well as videos. And if you're thinking about getting into resin casting, but you're not really sure where to begin, check out my ebook, The Beginner's Guide to Resin Casting. It answers all those beginner questions like, you know, what types of tools and supplies do I need? What kind of resin should I use? How does it all work? It'll get you over that initial learning curve so you can get in the shop and start making resin cast projects like this on your own. It's available on my website if you're interested. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching this video and happy casting.